Imagine this. November 15th, 1922. The BBC is brand new, just 2 days old, and something extraordinary happens. A station in Manchester called 2ZY broadcasts the very first children's radio program in Britain. They call it Kiddies Corner. It's just a simple show. Stories, music, a presenter talking to children they cannot see. But it's revolutionary. For the first time, children have content made specifically for them. A program in their afternoon slot, where they can hear their names called out. Birthday greetings, stories just for them. Within weeks, other stations copy the idea. Birmingham, London. Soon there's a national program called Children's Hour. It runs from 1922 all the way until 1964. 42 years. On radio. Presenters call themselves aunties and uncles. They become voices in children's homes, familiar friends, Uncle Mac, Auntie Kathleen. These names become loved nationwide. Fast forward to today, 2024. The world is completely different. Children aren't listening to radio. They're watching screens, multiple screens. They're watching YouTube, streaming services, smart TVs, tablets, interactive content. Some shows are interactive. They respond when children speak to them. The BBC still makes children's programs on channels called CBBC and CBeebies, launched in 2002. Educational, entertaining, diverse, different from anything the aunties and uncles could have imagined. Today we're going to travel from 1922 to now. Over 100 years of British children's entertainment. From radio voices to interactive screens. We'll see how children's programs evolved, what changed, what stayed the same, and what it reveals about childhood itself. The Children's Hour on radio was something special. It ran from 1922 until 1964. 42 years broadcasting daily to British children. The format was simple. No visuals, just voices, just sound. Stories, drama serials, music, talks about nature, wildlife adventures. Children had to imagine everything. Their minds created the pictures. By 1938, the program had attracted 4 million listeners. 4 million. In a nation of about 47 million people, children everywhere were tuning in at the same time each day. Late afternoon, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. The presenters became celebrities, not movie stars, radio stars, the aunties and uncles. In the 1920s, many presenters actually used auntie and uncle in their names. This was deliberately informal, meant to create closeness with listeners. But the BBC was concerned about this informality. In 1926, they decided most presenters should drop the nicknames, make things more formal, more professional. But some kept their names. Derek McCulloch kept his Uncle Mac identity. He became legendarily popular. He hosted or produced shows from 1929 right through until 1950. In Scotland, a presenter called Kathleen Garscadden was known as Auntie Kathleen. She was so beloved that crowds would gather at the Glasgow radio station just to see her arrive at work. The content was educational, deliberately so. The BBC believed children should learn through entertainment. There were serialized stories, plays, sketches. A famous character was Jennings at school. Episodes about a schoolboy named Jennings and his adventures. Children followed the serial day after day, week after week. There was Toy Town, a puppet show, with characters like Larry the Lamb, the mayor of Toy Town. It was whimsical, charming, pure imagination. And there were Nature Talks. A series called Out with Romany featured a man riding a horse through the British countryside, describing wildlife. His horse was called Kama. His dog was called Rack. Children learned about nature by hearing descriptions of his adventures. No pictures, just words, just imagination. During World War II, Children's Hour continued broadcasting, even when much else stopped. Princess Elizabeth herself made an address on the radio in 1940 to evacuated children. speaking directly to kids who had been sent away from their homes for safety. The program ended in 1964. By then, television had arrived. Younger children had grown up with television. Radio seemed old-fashioned. The final audience was just 25,000 listeners, down from 4 million. Mostly, the BBC reported, middle-aged and elderly ladies who liked to be reminded of the golden days of their youth. Television started slowly in Britain. There were experimental broadcasts from Alexandra Palace in the late 1930s, but nothing regular, nothing sustained. Then came World War II. On September 1, 1939, just hours before Britain declared war, the BBC switched off its entire television service. Mid-cartoon. A Mickey Mouse cartoon was playing when everything went dark. Resources were redirected to the war effort. For 6 years, no television, radio only. But after the war, television returned. June 7, 1946. The BBC switched television back on, just 1 day after peace began. And on June 9, 1946, the very first dedicated children's television program aired, called For the Children. A simple 15-minute show, storytelling, puppetry, magic, variety acts. Then came the star. October 1946. A puppet mule called Muffin appeared on television, operated by puppeteers, accompanied by a woman called Annette Mills. She sang with Muffin. They interacted. It was magical for children seeing a puppet move and sing. Muffin the Mule became huge. This was merchandising before it was commonplace. Muffin books, Muffin toys, Muffin badges. The character became so famous that a Muffin book was even published in the Soviet Union. In 1958, during the Cold War, that's remarkable. Annette Mills was the star. She wasn't just operating a puppet, she was a personality. Children loved her. She made the show interactive, even before interactive television existed. Muffin would do things, and Annette would react. It felt live. It was live. Muffin ran until 1952. When Mills died, the show ended. That was the BBC's decision. The character never returned until 2005, when a new cartoon version was made for CBeebies. But the real revolution came in 1958. October 16, 1958, a show called Blue Peter premiered. Blue Peter was created by producer John Hunter Blair. The BBC's head of children's programs, Owen Reed, wanted a show for children aged 5 to 8. There was a gap in programming for that age group. The name came from the Blue Peter flag, a flag that ships fly when leaving port. The message was clear. Children were going on an adventure, a voyage of discovery. The first presenters were Christopher Trace and Layla Williams. Trace was an actor. Williams had been Miss Great Britain the previous year. They were young, energetic, appealing to children. The show was only 15 minutes long initially, once a week, but it grew. By 1960, it had expanded to 20 minutes. Then it started airing twice weekly, Monday and Thursday, always live. A producer called Biddy Baxter took over in 1963. She introduced revolutionary elements. The famous Blue Peter badge. Children could win a badge by sending in a letter with an idea, or a drawing, or by appearing on the show. The badge became iconic, a shield with a blue galleon ship on it. Designed by an artist called Tony Hart. Children desperately wanted these badges. Parents saved them. People still talk about owning a Blue Peter badge. In 1963, they introduced the first Blue Peter pet, a dog called Petra. Animals on the show became important. There were guinea pigs, tortoises, a baby elephant that once urinated on the studio floor. That episode became legendary, still repeated decades later. The show became famous for its make segment, children making things from household objects. This phrase entered British culture. Here's one I made earlier. It was a genuine necessity. They didn't have instant glue back then, so they would make something beforehand. show the process, then show the finished version already made. Blue Peter ran continuously from 1958. It still airs today. The longest-running children's television show in the world. Over 65 years, more than 5,000 episodes. The 1980s brought something new. Saturday morning television became a massive thing. Live presentation, continuity announcers between shows, presenters who talked directly to children, created a sense of community. One famous presenter was a puppet called Gordon the Gopher. He appeared alongside Philip Schofield in a segment called The Broom Cupboard, a tiny booth where they announced what was coming next. Gordon squeaked instead of talking. Children loved him. Later, Gordon and Philip moved to a show called Going Live, a magazine show, interactive, chaotic, fun. There were game shows, competitive shows, quiz shows, chat shows. Saturday mornings became an event. Children would wake up early to watch. Families would gather around the television. The BBC had competition now. ITV had launched CITV in 1983, a rival children's block, offering different content, similar format but different programs. Both channels invested heavily in children's content. The result was a golden age. The 1980s and 90s are remembered as a peak for British children's television. By the 90s, children's television was everywhere. Multiple channels, multiple shows, longer broadcasts. There were educational shows, entertainment shows, drama shows, game shows, reality competition shows for children, shows like The Box, a show where children called in and requested music videos, very interactive for the time. News Round, a news show specifically for children, making current events accessible and understandable. Dramas like Grange Hill, about school life, addressing serious topics like bullying, racism, academic pressure. This was different, more realistic, showed childhood as not always fun. Animated shows, cartoons from around the world. Japanese anime started appearing. By 1990, there were cable and satellite channels, different options. The landscape was expanding. The BBC was trying new things, experimenting, taking risks. Some worked, some didn't. In 2002, something important happened. The BBC launched dedicated digital channels for children. CBBC, Children's BBC, for children aged 6 to 12. CBeebies, for children under 6. This was revolutionary. Until now, children's programming was part of BBC One or BBC Two, a strand, a block of time. Now there were entire channels devoted to children. CBeebies launched with presenters, live continuity, educational shows, entertainment, stories, music, everything a young child needed. CBBC focused on older children, drama, comedy, game shows, educational content, news, reality shows. For the first time, children could watch children's content all day, not just at specific times. The channels had specific philosophies: educational value, safety, diversity, age-appropriate content. They used in-vision presenters to link programs, real people talking directly to children, creating a sense of community, similar to how radio had worked. The formats evolved: behind-the-scenes documentary-style shows, reality shows with young people, drama series exploring teen issues, shows like Waterloo Road, a drama series about school, about teenagers, about real life, harder-edged than Blue Peter, but still responsible, still appropriate. As internet speeds improved, streaming became possible. YouTube, Netflix, Amazon Prime. The BBC launched BBC iPlayer. You could watch programs on demand, not just at broadcast times. Suddenly, the rules changed. Children didn't have to watch when programs aired. They could watch whenever they wanted. This created new problems. Binge watching, children watching too much, too quickly. But it also created opportunities. Educational content could be watched multiple times. Learning reinforced. Complex stories could be watched at a child's own pace. YouTube created a new category: child vloggers. Children becoming content creators themselves, not just consumers, but makers. The BBC adapted, made shows more interactive, added online components, games, quizzes, community forums. CBBC and CBeebies still exist, still broadcast, still fundamental to British children's media. But now they're one option among many. So, from 1922 to 2024, over 100 years, what changed? Everything. The medium, the technology, the reach, the format. Radio was intimate, one voice, imagination required. Children had to create the pictures. Television added images, visual storytelling, characters. But it was still broadcast, linear. You watched when it aired. Digital streaming is on demand. Multiple platforms, infinite choice, interactive elements, gamification, social media integration. Children's attention spans seem shorter. Programming has adapted. Faster cuts, brighter colors, more stimulation. But here's what didn't change: the core mission. The BBC has always believed children deserve quality content, that children deserve to learn through entertainment, that childhood should be protected, that programs should be age-appropriate. In 1922, the BBC made children's radio because they believed children were an important audience. In 1946, they resumed television with children's content. In 2002, they launched dedicated children's channels. Today, they're still committed, still producing content specifically for children. Blue Peter is still on the air. 66 years and counting. The longest-running children's show in the world. The BBC's philosophy remains consistent. Make programs that educate, that entertain, that show children the world, that create a sense of community. What did we lose? The simplicity, the communal experience. When everyone watched the same show at the same time, discussed it at school the next day. Now children can watch different things. No shared cultural touchstone, unless something goes viral on social media. The aunties and uncles of radio, those intimate voices, that daily relationship with a personality. It's different now, more distant, more corporate. The creativity required. With radio, children imagined, used their imaginations. With streaming, it's all provided. Less space for imagination. The appointment viewing, the ritual. Waking up Saturday morning to watch television. Now it's available anytime, which is convenient, but less magical. What did we gain? Choice, diversity, different shows for different interests. Instead of one children's hour, there are hundreds of options. Quality, production values are higher, better technology, more sophisticated storytelling. Diversity, more representation, different races, different abilities, different family structures, shows reflecting the real world. Accessibility. Streaming means children anywhere can watch, not dependent on broadcast times or regions. Interactivity. Children can participate, respond, create content themselves. Which is better? That's complicated. Radio required active listening. Television was more passive. Streaming is interactive, but often just consuming content made by others. Perhaps the ideal combines all three: the intimate connection of radio voices, the visual storytelling of television, the accessibility and interactivity of digital. But one thing remains true: children deserve quality content, content that entertains and educates, content that's age-appropriate, content made with them in mind. Whether it's through a radio speaker in 1942, a television set in 1972, or a streaming device in 2024, the mission remains the same.